All right, SoFi, let's dive in. They started with student loans, but now they're kind of all over the place in the world of finance. Think you've got SoFi figured out? You might be surprised.
What's interesting to me is that they're not just like another bank. They're trying to be the place you go to for, well, everything money. Loans, banking, investing,
Yeah.
even keeping an eye on your credit score, all in one place.
Yeah, it's like they want to be what the Amazon of finance, but instead of, ordering a book or whatever, you're getting a mortgage or setting up a high yield savings account.
Exactly. And that's not an accident. That ambition, it's really being driven by their CEO, Anthony Noto.
Okay, so tell me about this guy.
Well, he's not just your average CEO, you know what I mean? This guy has like the perfect background for shaking things up.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So he was a big deal at Goldman Sachs, helped steer Twitter through some pretty rough times. He even has experience with the NFL.
Wow, okay. So he's definitely used to high pressure situations, which I guess makes sense when you think about how fast SoFi is growing. They just keep adding more and more stuff, products and services, almost like a tech company, not a bank.
That's a great point. You see, traditional banks tend to stick with what they know, but SoFi, they're constantly changing and expanding. Remember that S-curve thing from that fintech video we talked about?
Yeah, I remember that.
That's exactly what they're doing.
So they just keep adding new things to make sure that growth curve keeps going up and up.
You got it.
Okay, so we've got this company trying to do everything finance, led by a CEO who, like you said, has this crazy impressive background. But where does that AWS of fintech idea fit in?
Now that's where it gets really interesting. So, you know Amazon Web Services, right?
Of course, everyone knows AWS.
Right. But AWS, it's not just about online shopping. It's the behind the scenes stuff, the infrastructure that makes tons of other online businesses possible. SoFi, they want to do that same thing, but for finance.
So instead of selling like sweaters and whatnot, they're selling the ability for other companies to basically be a bank.
Hmm.
Wait, how does that even work?
Okay, so think about it. Right now, if some company, especially like a startup, wants to offer, I don't know, some kind of financial service,
Right.
they have to basically build it all themselves from the ground up,
Hmm.
which is a huge undertaking, not to mention crazy expensive and time consuming. SoFi's idea is to change that.
By offering like pre-made banking tools. So any company can just plug in these features without all the hassle.
That's the general idea. And a big part of this is because they bought this company called Galileo. This is not just some random thing. It's a big part of their whole B2B strategy, like business to business, not just working with individual customers like you or me.
Okay, so let me get this straight. They're still doing all this stuff for regular people, the loans and savings accounts and all that. But Bob did are also giving other companies the tools so those businesses can do the same thing under their own names.
Yep. And remember you were asking about that other company they bought, Technisys.
Oh yeah, that one kind of flew under the radar, didn't it?
Well, they're all about building systems that can scale like crazy, like handling millions of customers and tons of transactions without any problems.
So Galileo gives you the tools, and Technisys makes sure those tools can handle the pressure.
Exactly. And that's exactly what you need if you're serious about being the AWS of fintech.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it now. But my brain is definitely working overtime. We've gone from student loans to like the foundation of the financial internet.
Yeah.
So let's bring it back down to earth for a second. What about SoFi's high-yield savings accounts? I keep hearing about those. Aren't those really popular?
Yeah, they are, and for good reason. SoFi's high-yield savings accounts are a perfect example of how they're trying to make even complex financial stuff easy for everyone. It's all about competitive rates and managing your money a breeze.
So what makes these high-yield accounts so special? I mean, isn't a savings account just a savings account?
Well, not really. High-yield savings accounts, we call them HYSAs for short, give you a much higher annual percentage yield. That's APY. And that APY is way better than your typical savings account. It means you earn more interest on your money. And that's huge for anyone who wants to see their savings grow, right?
Ah, so it's like a savings account on steroids. I think I read somewhere that SoFi is offering over 4% right now. That blows most banks out of the water.
It does, and that's a big part of their strategy. They're hoping that by attracting you with these great rates and features,
Right.
you'll stick around and maybe use some of their other products and services too. It's smart, especially with so much competition these days.
Okay, I'm liking the sound of that high-yield savings account. But
Yeah.
what about investing? Don't they offer that too?
They do. And this is another area where SoFi is trying to do things differently. They've got all kinds of investment options, managed portfolios, individual stocks, ETFs, all in one platform.
Sounds pretty convenient. But there are like a million investing apps out there these days. What makes SoFi stand out from the crowd?
It's all about keeping it simple and affordable. The platform is designed to be super user-friendly, especially for beginners who might be a little intimidated by investing. And they've kept their fees really low, which is a huge plus for people who don't want to spend a fortune just to manage their money.
Interesting. So they're targeting people who are just starting out with investing, trying to be their go-to with a one-stop shop that's easy to use and affordable. Sounds good to me.
It does have its appeal, yeah. But, and there's always a but, there are some serious challenges for SoFi, especially with investing.
What kind of challenges?
Well, the competition is really fierce. You've got these huge, established players with tons of money, and everyone knows their names.
Yeah, it's a tough market to crack.
It is. So how can SoFi compete with these giants?
Well, a big advantage they have is their technology. They put a lot of resources into building this really strong platform, one that's fast, flexible, and built for innovation. So they're not just copying what everyone else is doing. They're trying to stay ahead of the curve by constantly improving and finding new ways to make investing easier and more engaging.
Exactly. And this is where their AWS of fintech thing comes back in. By offering their tech to other businesses, they have the potential to reach a much larger audience. And that could help them grow way beyond just individual investors.
Okay, that's definitely an ambitious goal, but can they actually pull it off?
It's still early days, and there are definitely risks involved, but they've shown that they can adapt, they can innovate, and they get things done.
Well, they've certainly come a long way since those student loan days. It's like they've transformed themselves from a tiny caterpillar into this, like, financial butterfly.
It has been an interesting journey, that's for sure. I'm definitely curious to see what happens next.
Me too. But for now, let's take a closer look at those high-yield savings accounts and really break down how they work.
So we talked about that awesome APY on SoFi's HYSA, over 4%. But what's really interesting is how they're like weaving it into their whole platform.
Okay, now curious, what do you mean by that? It's not just a fancy app or something, is it?
It's more than just a pretty interface. They want you to make SoFi your main financial hub.
Yeah.
Like, to get that top APY, you have to set up direct deposit. And for a lot of people, that's their paycheck.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's not just a place to park some extra cash. They want to be where all your money comes in.
Exactly. And once they've got you with that direct deposit, they've got all these other things ready to go. Personal loans that could have better rates than what you've got now, refinancing your student loans, even investment accounts so your money can really work for you.
So it's kind of like a get you in the door with a great savings rate strategy. Then, bam, here's all this other cool stuff we do. Pretty smart, actually. But are they cutting corners somewhere else? If that HYSA is so good, are there hidden fees or something I should know about?
It's a really good question. You always got to look out for those fees. Actually, SoFi's banking stuff is usually pretty good about fees, especially compared to those big banks. The ones that nickel and dime you with monthly charges and all those crazy overdraft fees. But of course, you always got to check the fine print, right?
Right, always read the fine print. But it sounds like SoFi is really pushing that whole we're your financial buddy angle. But can they really compete in the B2B world too? That whole AWS of fintech thing we were talking about.
That's where those companies they bought, Galileo and Technis, come back into play. They're putting their money where their mouth is. It's not just talk. Think about it. If some startup wants to make a financial product, they've got to do it all themselves.
Yeah, hiring developers, security people, all that. Sounds like a headache.
Exactly. But with SoFi's platform, imagine a company launching, like, their own banking stuff in way less time and for way less money. Suddenly, your fitness app can give you a debit card with rewards for working out. Or a small business platform can let you apply for a loan right there, super easy.
Okay, I can see how that could be huge. Making finance easier for businesses, A&D for regular people.
Yeah.
But SoFi's not the only one doing this fintech stuff.
Yep.
Right. Who else is out there?
Oh, man, there's a ton of competition. You've got the big names like PayPal and Square. But there's also a bunch of new startups popping up all the time. Oh, and don't forget about those old school banks. They're trying to get with the times, too, trying to update their tech and appeal to younger people.
So how's SoFi going to stand out in all that? They've got the technology, the drive.
Yeah.
But are they really a threat to the big players?
Their strategy seems to be about a few things. Aggressive marketing, constantly improving their products, and using that B2B stuff to create what they call a network effect.
Network effect. What's that?
It basically means the more businesses that use SoFi's platform, the better it is for everyone. It's like a snowball effect, where success just leads to more success. If they can get enough businesses and regular people using their stuff, they create this whole ecosystem that's hard to compete with.
So it's not just about beating the competition. It's about building something so cool that everyone wants to be a part of it. Well, clever. But what about investors? You mentioned SoFi stock has been up and down. Is it a good investment?
That's the million-dollar question. SoFi definitely has a lot of potential for growth, but they're not consistently making a profit yet. They're
Oh.
spending a ton on marketing and tech to grow, which is eating into their profits right now.
So it's all about growth, growth, growth.
hmm
But that can't last forever. What are investors watching for? How can they know if SoFi's really on the right track?
They want to see those big investments paying off, like real sustainable growth. And eventually, profits. Things like how many users they're adding, how many loans they're giving out, how their B2B platform's doing. That's the stuff that matters.
So it's got to be more than just hype. They've got to show they can actually make money. That makes sense. But what about regular people? Is SoFi good for everyday banking and stuff?
Well, that depends on what you're looking for, right? SoFi's good at having competitive rates, easy to use technology, and lots of different products. They're a good fit for people who are comfortable doing most of their finances online, people who want things to be simple and efficient.
Okay, so if you're someone who likes going to a bank and talking to a teller, SoFi might not be the best fit. But if you're all about digital banking, it sounds like they're offering a pretty sweet deal.
For sure. And they're constantly adding new features and products. Who knows what they'll come up with next?
That's what makes it exciting. They're not afraid to try new things and shake things up, and that's always worth paying attention to.
Totally agree. SoFi's a great example of how tech is changing the world of finance. They're not just building a company, they're kind of changing the whole game.
And that's what makes this deep dive so cool. It's not just about one company. It's about where the whole world of finance is headed.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot, right? Like SoFi's whole journey, their CEO, that AWS of fintech idea, their products, and all the challenges they face, even their stock. But for the average person, what does it all really mean?
Yeah, that's the big question. Like, if SoFi actually does what they're trying to do, it could change how we think about financial stuff, you know? Like, imagine banking being a part of everything we do.
So, like, I'm buying shoes online, and right there, I can get a SoFi loan to pay for them without even leaving the website.
Exactly. Or like your fitness tracker gives you rewards for hitting your goals, but those rewards go straight into a high yield savings account. It's like banking everywhere all the time. Crazy, right?
Sounds kind of cool, but wouldn't that be like way more complicated? I mean, now I've got my bank over here, my investments over there.
Well, that's what SoFi's trying to fix. It's not about adding more stuff. It's about bringing everything together in one place. So instead of having apps for everything, it's all in SoFi.
That's the plan. Make it all easier to understand, more personalized, and for everyone, not just, people who already know all the financial stuff.
Okay, so it's bigger than just SoFi, right? It's about the future of, well, money itself.
You got it. And that's why this whole deep dive is so interesting. It's not just one company, it's a whole new way of thinking about finance.
Makes you think, for sure. So for our listener, the one thing to remember about SoFi is,
Watch them, not just for what they're offering now, but for what it means for the future. They're showing how technology is changing everything about money. It's like the old way of banking is colliding with all this new tech.
yeah, it's a wild time for finance, for sure. SoFi is a great example of what happens when you've got big ambitions and you're not afraid to change, to try new things, and when you really believe in the power of technology.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into SoFi Technologies. It's been a wild ride, and we can't wait to see what they do next and how the whole world of fintech keeps changing.
Thanks for hanging out with us and exploring SoFi. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.